Hi everyone, my name is Bo Derks and thank you for joining me. Um, I would like to discuss a topic that seems very vital nowadays to a lot of people who are on their journey of their awakening, and that's aloneness. I've experienced, sorry, it's my kitten underneath the couch. I don't know if I can unpack it. Oh, here he is. Where were we? I was just only beginning. Um, yes, aloneness. Especially in these times because transformation is rapid. It's going so fast. Especially the last few months have been very progressive in terms of that our DNA, our body is adjusting very fast in a rapid phase to the frequency that we need to start holding in our bodies. And as we are doing so, there is it's not only becoming a bodily experience, of course, because as our frequency rises, as a frequency rise, we will also notice this in the external world. That goes along with changes too. And I don't know, guys, if you can relate, but I experienced in my awakening process multiple phases in my life where I needed to undo myself completely from a lot of external things, including people around me. And this is what I'd like to address today because on an ego level, there is a lot of conditioning, ancestral trauma on the team aloneness, and I want to break that down with you guys today, since this is such a vital experience for a lot of us right now. Let's sit with that feeling of because the feeling of aloneness with me, if I'm just present in the here and now, and I would just let that word sink in, it's basically a very neutral experience being alone. But why are there times in our lives, and that can be long phases or short phases, where we can become very depressed and anxious about being alone? What is that? What is going on that in certain situations when we're alone, we're completely fine, and then in another phase of our lives, we seem to struggle a lot with this aloneness? Well, it's actually a very big myth that's underneath it, and for everybody, for everyone, I feel it's the same myth we have been repeating for centuries over and over again. And I will take myself as an experience, and maybe you can relate or maybe not, but as I grew up as a child, there wasn't a lot of connection. There wasn't a lot of emotional availability. So in order for me to not feel that completely, because of course that, especially for a child, when you're so much um, powerless over the situation, you cannot decide to step out of the situation and say bye bye and I will go somewhere else. So you need to endure the situation. And what I did was to not feel this intense aloneness, this disconnection from my family. I started to adapt. I started to create the conviction in my mind, I need to adapt in order to be connected with my surroundings. So if that conviction is being created on this very early age, you can imagine it starts to become part of your whole experience, your mental, emotional, and even your bodily experience. Um, so that I have worked very hard for a long time in connection with people, and you know what I mean with working hard, huh? It's an energetically working hard inside of me, because I had this conviction I need to do my best to connect, because the way I am, effortless, isn't going to give me any connection. Well, there comes a point in your awakening process where you start feeling completely depleted and burned out by that pattern, and you start seeing, I need to let this go. And it's not an active doing. You at one moment in your life, you will feel it wants to let itself go from you. And the way I experienced this was, I just didn't feel good anymore. I where before I could do this still, and there was still some kind of effort, I guess, like um, I was still getting something out of it, working so hard in connection with people. I at one point realized I'm not getting anything out of this anymore, but wait, what did I get out of it in the first place? That's a very interesting question to ask yourself. Like, what is it that we got out of it in the first place? And as I sat and I meditated on this, um, I came to this conclusion. What I got out of it is that it made sure that I didn't feel the trauma and the pain and the aloneness that I felt as a child, because I couldn't put up boundaries. I couldn't make a decision to step away from the situations that were unhealthy for me. So this was a survival method for me, as for everyone is. This is a survival method in concluding in your mind, I need to work hard in order to connect with people. Um, but as you start dropping this conviction, you also will see that when you stop working hard, the connection that you thought you were having with the people around you wasn't actually really a connection. You were working very hard to get what? To get in the same kind of situation as you were doing as a child, to come maybe near a sort of connection, but um, in how do you say that? At a point in your development, you will start feeling it doesn't give you anything anymore. So you stop doing it. And when you stop doing it, you start realizing, hmm, there wasn't ever even a connection to start with, to begin with. It was a pattern that we were active on, that we were repeating over and over again. So the moment when we stopped doing that, of course, a lot of people that we were in this kind of chemistry with will fall away naturally, because um, the way we resonate, we resonated wasn't our natural self. And then when we do become our natural self, we start seeing that people will fall away. And what it does in the first glimpse, in a reactivity, if we are not conscious about what's happening, if we are reactive towards the falling away of people in our lives, we will start feeling very hurt, like um, why is this happening to me? Why is everything falling away? And it's that why is the control of the mind, because when we stop questioning this why, and we just sit with it for a moment, and we really let this experience sink in very deeply. We realize that the feelings that arise have nothing to do with what is happening in the here and now. What is what is in fact happening is that we, in the first time in our lives, are starting to feel the trauma that we always have been numbing by adapting, pleasing, and working hard because we thought we needed to in order to get a connection. So we get in touch with that feeling of maybe fear, maybe a deep grief, of not having an emotional availability as a child, because we were very much, as a child, you're very much depending on your environment. This time frame is learning us to stop being codependent and becoming self-sufficient, in order to become very grounded and anchor our frequency in the earth, to become lighthouses, so to say. We cannot become lighthouses. We cannot become the seeds of consciousness to our surroundings if we, in a way, are still depending for our fullness outside of ourselves. So the moment that we come in this phase of solitude, we start projecting our feelings of fear, restlessness, and grief, and maybe also anger on the here and now. But what I noticed lately, and that's such a aha moment for me, is especially after I meditated and I'm really being anchored and grounded in myself, that being alone doesn't trigger these feelings of grief and doesn't trigger these feelings of anxiety or restlessness. It's the other way around. It's what went away, what is going away in our lives, that was creating the disconnectedness, because we were adapting ourselves, we were molding ourselves into something that actually created this feeling of loneliness. Because what is loneliness? In fact, loneliness is the absence of connection with our source. Loneliness is never the actual being with yourself, what a lot of people think, including myself. I have thought for quite some moments in my life where I was going through very big transformations in my life, and with those inner transformations, of course, my outer environment also started changing, including falling away of people around me. And for quite some time, I was feeling very much sad and depressed even, and restless under that phase of like this nothingness, this stillness. But at one point we all come to a phase, and I really feel I'm coming in this phase where when I sit with myself in that stillness, I start realizing that the emotions that arise under circumstances of aloneness are based on a myth. And that myth isn't been created in the here and now. The myth is that I started conditioning my mind that if I am, how can I say this best? That I started to create so much fear of being all alone, no friends, no relationship, nothing. But what is underneath it is not. It was not that fear. It wasn't I wasn't fearing myself. Um, what I was fearing is when I stopped adapting and I stopped molding myself in this conditioning that I was going through, this cycle I was going through over and over again. And at that moment, at one point in my life, this stopped. I really felt it doesn't serve me anymore. In those moments, I came into this grief of my inner child who felt very lonely and very sad about, yeah, being in this family and looking around, and there was no connectedness. There was no resonation. There was no resonance. um, and as I'm starting to feel through these feelings of trauma of my childhood, I started to see that the experience of being alone was never the trauma. It was never what triggered feelings of depression. It was the falling away of people in my life where I still was actively acting on that conditioning that started as a survival skill, not to feel these feelings of abandonment, not to feel um, a lack of emotional availability around me, not to feel a lack of connectedness around me. So as we start integrating those feelings and letting them be and becoming this loving womb for this inner child, we start disintegrating what we thought we had projected on the theme of being alone. And for me, it still is, because there's still some integration going on. It's a very beautiful process to let go of that fear, because what we're basically doing when we're awakening is letting go of fears and just becoming completely present. And just stand still for a moment, what it will do for you when you start um, 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 I say the packing out this myth. And you start seeing that the aloneness is not what makes you feel depressive, what makes you feel sad, or what makes you feel anxious. It's the inner child trauma that is still sitting there, waiting for you to be addressed, and waiting for you to be loved, and waiting for you to get attention. And um, and there's a very beautiful present that comes with this. And the present for me is that when you start taking responsibility for this trauma underneath this conditioning, you will no longer feel the need at all to mold yourselves or please or adapt yourself to your surroundings. Because what would be the point now if you start seeing, oh, these feelings of being alone have nothing to do with being with myself. In fact, it's rather a trauma that has been sitting there for all this time until we were ready to let go of what we were doing outside of ourselves. And that gives so much power. Can you imagine how much power it gives, and how much authenticity, and how much um, realness you are able to start giving to the world? And that's what the world, and to ourselves, let's not forget ourselves. um, and because it's so important right now, it's always important, but these times what we really need is realness from other people, and to start with realness within ourselves. So for me, there is a lot of exhaustion coming free of this pattern. Like, oh my god, I really start feeling, wow, what have I worked hard, you know? There's just a lot of depletion and exhaustion on wanting to connect and to work hard in order to connect, because that was always my conviction, like, oh, from early on, I need to work hard in order to have a connection. And by crystallizing and digesting this trauma and this conviction, I start gaining a completely different freedom that doesn't contain me to work hard in contact with people, that allows me to become more autonomous, more free of who I really am. And it just flows, you know. It's not a working hard. It's not based on fear or any kind of trauma anymore. It becomes more real. I wanted to share this with you guys, and maybe you can relate, maybe you don't. um, I wish you a lot of love.